My goodness, who would that possibly be?
This is Lauren Schaus from the Yellow Springs News. It just occurred to me that you will actually be here in Yellow Springs on Palm Sunday weekend.
But isn't that wonderful? That's the word has kind of gotten around to various communities in America that this what we do, and so it's the interesting thing about it is that everything that we do with this movie or this play, everybody wants to have it either on the Easter time of the year or at Christmas time of the year. But we have been working on a tour in Italy for over a year, and each one of those cities we've gone to wants us to come back, but they all want us to come either on Easter or on Christmas. So we have to kind of put it up for grabs, you see. And this weekend and the Christmas weekend is always the most profound for obviously for this movie or for us doing the show live. So it's I'm happy that we're coming to Yellow Springs because you're giving us 3 days. That's incredible. The thing that makes this film work is the fact that it is about the most celebrated human being on the face of the earth in all of history. So everybody knows the story. So you don't have to go, what are they talking about?
I have to say, when I was younger, I grew up in sort of a pretty conservative home. And I remember being told that Jesus Christ Superstar was sort of blasphemous because it dared to suggest that there was anything human about Jesus. And so I wonder if you ever get any of that from people.
Well, I must tell you honestly, when we did the original Broadway show, which was before we made the film, we were protested vehemently every single night. As we would go into the theater, we had to literally push our way through people with posters. I don't mean three or four guys. I mean, felt like New Year's Eve in Times Square. And as we would push our way through, I would say to the people, "Excuse me, but have you seen the show?" And they would say, "No, it's blasphemy. We're not going into this horrible place." And I would say, "Excuse me, sir, but please, would you mind coming into the theater tonight as my guest? Watch the show, wait for me after the show, and tell me what you don't like. And maybe we can address that." And they would look at me with this dumbfounded expression on their face and say, "Are you serious?" And I would say, "Absolutely, please come in as my guest." So those who came in after the show, I would walk out to the lobby to see them, and they would say, "We love it." And then they would come back and bring friends. So honestly, that's what started me doing what I still do to this day. After every performance, I go into the lobby and I talk to the people in the audience, whoever wants to stay and talk. People come to me and say, "Mr. Neely, I found my faith through watching this film." And the main thing that they love the most is that it looks at Jesus as a man. And everybody can relate to that because they can see a little bit of themselves in the characters.
I'm wondering if Jesus, sort of as a cultural icon, is becoming cool again or something. I know, like in the late 60s and early 70s, that was sort of the pinnacle of the Jesus movement, the Christian faction of hippie counterculture. You were there. Why do you think Jesus was so popular back then?
I think, quite honestly, it was because of what we were going through in the world at the time, because we were right in the midst of the Vietnam War. Suddenly, we all felt as one spirit because we didn't believe in that war. We didn't want to have anything to do with that war. It was just, for us, it was just watching different societies butcher each other for no purpose whatsoever. It creates hatred. So that movement in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s happened because those of we who were the generation who would be sent off to kill people refused to do it.
The first song in the film that Carl Anderson sings.
Yeah, heaven on their minds. Yeah.
Yeah, he says something like Jesus has become bigger than what Jesus stands for, and in a way, I see that playing out in the country now. People sort of use the church and Jesus as a figurehead for things that definitely Jesus wouldn't have stood for in his time.
Right. And the line you're referring to is he says you've begun to matter more than the things you say. That's Tim Rice's words that he's singing. You see, Tim Rice, brilliant words that he adapted out of the first four books of the New Testament, primarily the book of John. The whole premise was that Judas was part of what he thought was the revolution. He and Simon and all the zealot tribes of Israel at the time felt that Jesus was there to be their liberator. to go to war against all those warring factions, and most specifically the Romans who dominated them at the time. So Judas, he and all of his compatriots felt that this is our leader. Let's follow him. Let's do what he says because everyone listens to him. He can help us organize and make it work. And then when they found out that he was a man of peace, that's what blew it.
Did you grow up in the church? Did you have a faith like that?
Okay, my hometown, I grew up in Texas, Ranger, Texas. The population of my hometown was 1,989 people. And it was so seriously religious, everything about it. I mean, it's the Southern Baptist Convention, you see, where I come from. So I grew up overwhelmingly convinced that the spiritual way was Jesus and the church, no question. And since I was so deeply involved in music as a child, I certainly started off, at least publicly, in the church choir. So my entire life was invented by going to church. I think that's maybe one of the reasons why I was chosen to be in this. When I finally got cast, first it was in for the Broadway show, and then for the L.A., and then for the movie. In each case, the director who did the theatrical production, as well as Norman Jewison, who directed the film, would say to the cast members as we would start rehearsing, by the way, if any of you have any questions regarding the relationships between the apostles and the faith and what the biblical essence is of this story, go talk to Ted. He knows all those answers. And it's amazing that I got the opportunity to pretend in a movie, and it is remarkable what it has and how it has influenced my life so deeply and so spiritually and so magnificently.
I have been watching some videos on YouTube from your Italy tour. One of the things that strikes me is that your voice has sort of a different gravitas now than it did in the 70s. But how would you say the changing quality of your voice has informed your performance? I mean, in these later years.
I must say, I'm honored that it still works. First of all, I wasn't aware of what you're saying until the internet happened, and suddenly people started to dig out videos of past performances. You see, the difference is I have spent a lifetime singing and performing and experiencing life. Thank you very much. And the influence of that has created what I sound like now. I never sat down and went, okay, it's time for me to put a little growl in here, or me to do a little this, or me to. What I'm saying is just like we hopefully grow and become more intelligent with age, I believe our speaking voices, and certainly the things we have to say without question, but the sound of our voices grow and change with maturity.
When I watched the video of you in Italy, well, you still sound like Jesus, but you sound like the Jesus who is also God. You have an authority in your voice.
Oh, I just had a heart attack. May I ask you a favor?
What's that?
Will you please become my official reviewer for everything I do from now on?
You said you were in Italy for about a year. Would you say that performing on the stage for a year is more or less taxing than filming in the desert in the Holy Land?
See, for me, believe it or not, I didn't find either. I have not found this experience, and I certainly did not find shooting in the Holy Land taxing. On, Only a marvelous experience. And it may be indigenous to this piece. The experience in Israel, I wish I could do it again every day because of the experience, what we learned, we were surrounded by the essence of Christ the whole time we were there, and we were in the middle of a war. It's right around the 7 Day War period, and while we're shooting the movie, the planes and the tanks are bombing the borders all around us. You see, so you go, wait a minute, will this ever end? I have to say this: I am not Jesus. I am a rock and roll drummer from Texas who screams high notes and got so fortunate that I got to be a part of this wonderful, magnificent musical piece of art. It just, I thank the Lord every day. And I have been part of something for only 40 years that has helped to spread that peace, love, and light consciousness around the world. This wonderful movie. And do you know who told me that most specifically just recently? Guess who that was?
Was it the Pope?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Papa Francesco. When you first started talking today about the protesting and all that, well, Norman Jewison was well aware of all of that amazing protesting that went on in New York with us every single night, and we were doing 8 shows a week there. So he was concerned that if there was a possibility that the Catholic faith would not support this film, maybe nobody would ever see the film, or possibly it might not ever even get released, you see. So, what he did when he finished shooting the film is he was able to arrange an audience with the Pope to see the film. At the time, the Pope was Pope Paul VI. The two of them sat and watched the movie together. After the movie was finished, Pope Paul VI said, Mr. Jewison, I love your film. Before that endorsement, who knows?